Ladies and gentlemen, RPG Overload is officially over. Yes, we did it. It took a lot of work, but I am finally completed both of the genuinely huge RPGs that have been taking up the vast majority of streaming time here on DSPGaming for the past couple of months. Today on the show, I will give my final thoughts on both Baldur's Gate 3 and Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, and we will wholeheartedly move into new content with 2 new games today. I am so excited. I'm feeling refreshed. I'm feeling pumped for new content, which is what I'm usually known for and has been weirdly not present on the channel lately. Thank you for being patient. See you in a sec for the Level 1 podcast. Alrighty, everybody. Good morning and welcome to the show. Today is Saturday, the 30th of March, 2024. And of course, I'm Darkside Phil and I welcome you to the podcast. Now, before we get started, allow me to clarify. I'm happy to be moving into new content today, but at the same time, it is kind of bittersweet when you're used to playing the same games over and over. You almost feel at home when you sit down to play them. You know what I mean? And Baldur's Gate 3 is a game that I've started playing in mid-December. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is a game that I started playing at the end of January. So, 3.5 months, 2 months of essentially the same games. You get a regular crowd that comes by for them. You get a hangout feeling when you play them. But to give you guys some perspective, those kind of games don't really work that well with my channel and my style of content creation, and never really have. When I play a long-form RPG like that, I usually try to balance it with a bunch of other variety on this channel. That way, it's not too much of the same kind of long-form gameplay that takes up all of our time and ends up feeling too samey. But that's exactly what happened this time. Is I was playing Baldur's Gate 3 in December. Everyone knew it was a 100-plus hour game, but still pretty much demanded that I play it. When it finally won Game of the Year 2023... everyone was possibly screaming, or not possibly, they very prominently were screaming at me, "I can't believe you skipped the Game of the Year." So I said I would play it, thinking, oh, we'll get really far before new games come out. And I didn't even get halfway into it before new games came out because it was so long. So what ended up happening was an incredibly long RPG, and then what happened? Other incredibly long RPGs started coming out, including Persona 3 Reload, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and others that I didn't even play. Okay? And this is where things went awry, because how am I going to juggle a million of the same style of game? Now, not to say that they're identical. They're definitely not. They all have differences between them. But they're still long-form RPGs, and people got tired of it. And what ended up happening was you had a game like Baldur's Gate 3 where originally we were getting crowds to watch me play it. Do you remember the premiere stream? I had over 1,000 viewers, and I almost never get over 1,000 viewers these days for anything, right? So to have a crowd like that was wild for an RPG, but it didn't last, especially with Baldur's Gate 3, maybe lasted a week. And after that, view count kind of went down to what I normally would get for a stream. And then after another few weeks, it basically dipped to below what I would get. On average, for any kind of a game or stream, I'd get around between 300 to 400 viewers. It depends on the game, because some will have more and some will have less. But with Baldur's Gate, a lot of those streams, we were only having around 200 viewers. So half my usual attendance, half the usual people watching the videos on demand on my channel here. And the only reason the playthrough worked was because people were supportive on the streams. And when I say people, no exaggeration, I mean about 10 people. Like 10 of people would come by on different days and always support. It was always the same 10 people, essentially, coming in and supporting those streams. If it weren't for those people, that playthrough would have failed miserably, because it wasn't getting views and it wasn't getting engagement at all on the channel. And this channel went from my normal views in the fall, which are very good, to like this for the last 3 months. It literally plummeted as I was playing 2 RPGs that weren't getting engagement and weren't getting views. Okay? Now, normally that would be all right, again, if I was playing 1. But I was playing 2. And that was the problem. So moving forward, I'm going to be sure, absolutely positively sure, I don't play multiple long-form RPGs at the same time. I can't do it. This channel suffered greatly during that time frame. And what happened was, people who would usually be around expecting variety said, well, there's no variety here. I'll come back in a few months when there is. So now I have to get the word out that basically, hey, we're back to variety. Please come back. We got a survival horror game. We got a different style of RPG, and we're only doing 1. I'm going to bring back some multiplayer elements to the channel. I'm going to be doing a co-op with my wife that you guys have wanted to see since I reintroduced her to the channel back in January, right? Like, all this stuff is going to happen all at once, and it's going to be exciting. We're going to have fun stuff. We got in 1 week, we got a marathon for my birthday where we're doing some special cool stuff. So I certainly hope that people will now get the word. You know, I got to send a signal out. But how do I? I post on my social. I post on the channel tab. You know, what can I do? If people decided in the last 2 months that this was boring and they don't like RPGs, I'm pretty shit out of luck, right? So let's hope for the best, really. And I hope that people will spread the word, too, and say, hey, just so you know, he finally finished Baldur's Gate 3. He's done with Like a Dragon. Come back to the channel. There's good variety again, right? And here's the funny part about that is today we're starting a game called Alone in the Dark. That's a survival horror game. Now, a lot of mainstream reviewers panned it, and then when they cite the reasons they pan it, they're like, oh, because it plays like an old school horror game. It's like, that's the point. It's called Alone in the Dark. It's supposed to be a modernized version of an old school horror game, right? Like, they're trying to go for that. Again, this reminds me of like a decade ago. Double Dragon Neon came out, and this was supposed to be an homage to classic Double Dragon, and reviewers were writing, oh, it plays too much like classic Double Dragon. Like, that's the game. You bought it and played it. What did you think it was? Tetris? What are you, stupid? You know, like, it doesn't make any sense, some of the things people say. So, anyway. Basically, I'm excited for Alone in the Dark, because even if it's not good, it's still going to be refreshing to be doing something different, right? It will feel refreshing and new and different for the channel. And I love survival horror. You guys love my survival horror playthroughs. Just to give you some perspective, there's like a very few games that I played for variety among this RPG madness. One of them was that incredibly short Silent Hill, The Short Message. That game, the stream and the videos did better than any of the RPGs I was playing by 10 times. Like, seriously, I mean it. Like, those videos ended up getting thousands of views, even though the game sucked. Why? Because it was variety. Because it wasn't the same RPG over and over, and people liked that. So, I'm hoping that this game will get some people back to the channel, and also will create that variety you like. Even if the game ain't so good, I still feel like just having that variety feeling, you know what I'm saying? That's going to be a good thing. And just for the record, because some people in the chat still don't get it, all right? They're like, but I don't get it. During Baldur's Gate 3, people came by and tipped every day. You're right. I literally just said those 10 or so people who were tipping on those days are really the only reason that I was able to complete that playthrough the way that I did. Because outside of that, the videos were getting no views, the streams weren't getting views, no one was super chatting, and I got a huge drop in memberships. Like, the channel has suffered for 2 months because of this. So if it weren't for the tips, it wouldn't have been viable. But you have to understand something. Now this channel looks unhealthy. Now this channel has lost hundreds of thousands of views a month that it used to get, and has lost a bunch of ongoing supporters who said, he's just playing RPGs constantly. We'll come back. Okay? So, we shall see what happens. I'm hoping that bringing back this variety, all right, will help the channel again. All right, really. So, let's see what, I mean, I'm hoping for the best, and certainly if you're someone who has stayed away because you didn't care about these RPGs, I hear you. You're correct. It was overload, right? What I'd like to do is briefly talk about the schedule for the week, and then jump right into my final thoughts about both Baldur's Gate 3 and Like a Dragon to get that out of the way, and then we could get to hanging out and talking and all of that, okay? All right, cool. Okay, so what can you expect here on the channel now that RPG Overload is done? Well, today we start with new stuff, okay? Right after this podcast, we begin with my playthrough of Alone in the Dark. Excited to see how it begins. And you might say, well, why am I doing Alone in the Dark as the day stream today? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, because it's a new game. When I play a new game, I try to make it a mainstream regardless of what the game style is, because I want to get further into it being the premiere stream, right? There's nothing worse than having a premiere stream of a game and you literally just get the intro and don't actually get into the meat of the game. So you don't even get to see what the game really is. And then your stream's over. And you're like, oh, man, it feels terrible when that happens. And it happens particularly when I start a new game as a night stream, okay? So I definitely wanted to have this be a daytime stream so that I could get into the chunk of the game, the meat of the game per se. But also, how silly and ironic and just contradictory would it be if we're exiting RPG Overload and the very first stream I do afterwards is an RPG? That'd be pretty stupid, don't you think? So, yes, I'm definitely playing Dragon's Dogma 2 tonight on the late stream, and that will be our ongoing RPG for the time being. But, man, that would have been pretty stupid if I played it as the daytime stream, no? I mean, it would have really looked really dumb. So, Alone in the Dark today, daytime stream. Excited to jump into a survival horror game. By the way, David Harbour's in it. He's one of the main characters. He's a great actor, so hopefully he does a good performance. It'll you know, make the game even better. And then tonight on the late stream, Dragon's Dogma 2 continues. You know, after having only played it the once all day last Friday, not yesterday, but the Friday before when it came out, and then literally not being able to play it again has been killing me. You know, my wife has been playing this game all week, and she likes it a lot, and she tells me about stuff about it that she likes. She's like, oh, I fought a griffin today. Oh, I did this and that. And I'm like, damn it. I mean, I just want to play. I can't. I got to finish these other games. Now I can finally play. Okay? So that's tonight, 6:45 p.m. Pacific time. Tomorrow is Sunday, which means it's React Day. Now, it's a special day for a reason. We're going to do my usual clips show, DSP versus the internet, on my DSP Reacts channel on the first stream. And then after that ends on the late stream, we're going to DSP Throwback to start a new React project. It's Retro Replay, or excuse me, Retro React Bully Scholarship Edition. You guys voted over the course of the last week on the Throwback channel, and Bully won resoundingly. Like, he got double the votes of the other games. So it's going to be interesting. I remember that playthrough being very funny and people really liking it, but at the same time, it's very old. It's 11 plus years old. It was still done with my camera for the first half, and then halfway through the playthrough, I adopted direct capture and live streaming, which changed the feeling of the playthrough. So I'm very excited to see how that goes tomorrow night. Now, if it goes well, and people show up and engage and support the stream, I will continue to do the Retro React events every Sunday night. If now viewership and attendance and engagement and support dwindle because it's not Heavy Rain, which was the last one, then we'll probably do it less. Okay? I guess we're going to see how it goes. Okay? Let's see how it goes Sunday night. Then on Monday, we're back to gameplay. And basically, it's going to be the same two games as today. But the thing is, we have to decide, right? We have to decide which order we want to play the games. Do we want Alone in the Dark in the, you know, beginning or end? Or do we want Dragon's Dogma 2 on the day stream or night stream? We have to think about that. I guess really it'll depend on how Alone in the Dark is received today. If it goes well today and people like it, then maybe I'll do it as a day stream again. But if it ends up not doing so well, maybe people want to flip, right? We'll see. Okay? Cool. Let's see how it goes. So, and by the way, for those who are contributing, thank you. I do shout outs at the end of the podcast, and I will get to all of your messages and questions and things at the end of the show. So thank you for that. Okay, so that's Monday. Tuesday is kind of a up in the air deal because at some point I'm going to begin my co-op playthrough with my wife Kat of Beyond Two Souls, but we're not solidified yet on when it's going to be. It might be this week on like Tuesday or Wednesday night. It might not be. So it's a maybe. Okay, what I can tell you is I am going to continue to play Alone in the Dark and Dragon's Dogma 2 this week. Another thing that I want to do this week on one of the late night streams is I want to play the Battlefront collection. That's the Star Wars Battlefront Classic collection that came out multiple weeks ago, but when it came out, it was crapped and just not working at all. The game development studio has patched the game multiple times, and apparently it works really well now. So I want to play it. I mean, I bought it. I was supposed to have it as variety multiplayer on the streams, and it didn't work at launch. It was a joke. So I want to play it on one of these night streams, and hopefully it works and it'll be entertaining, you know? It's not very entertaining to watch me running around shooting things and it never hits, even though they're directly in front of me. It's stupid. No point in playing it, right? So let's see how that goes. So that's essentially the week this week. The main focus is Alone in the Dark and Dragon's Dogma 2, but there may be variety in there with, with other stuff, with the co-op or with the multiplayer, okay? DNA is saying there's a glitch on YouTube. He did a super chat, and he wants to do a second super chat, and it's glitching and telling him he can't do it. What's weird, though, is that BB Phil was able to do 2 super chats this morning, so I'm not sure why it would say that, DNA. He says he super chatted, and he wants to super chat again, and it says, you already own this item, as if he bought something, like he bought an item he owns now. What? Yeah, I don't know. That definitely sounds like a glitch. Maybe try refreshing, try another browser, try another device, try another dimension. I don't know. That sounds like a weird YouTube coding glitch, right? Okay, so that's the schedule, folks. Now, I think it's time for us to finish up my thoughts on both of the RPGs that I've been playing for months and months so we can move on with our lives, all right? So first of all, let's talk about Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, which is the first game that I finished yesterday, all right? Clocked in at, officially, 63 parts. However, for the last 1 to 2 weeks, I've been playing longer than hour-long parts because I've been pushing to try to finish the game. So even though it says 63, it's likely more like 66, 67 hours of gameplay or more. You know, I knew it was going to be around 70, 80 hours, but I did kind of turbo through the end of it and not do a lot of side content because we had to finish the game. So, what do I think about Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth? My final thoughts on the game, all right? Here's the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good. The fact that the game improves upon many things from Like a Dragon, the previous Like a Dragon, which is Yakuza Like a Dragon or Yakuza 7. For example, excuse me. For example, the combat is much improved. Now you have this positional awareness for healing, for area of effect attacks, for directional attacks. For example, if you hit an enemy with a regular melee attack and you push them into another enemy and it causes a combo of them falling over and taking additional damage, or positioning yourself so you can knock an enemy into your teammate and your teammate will do a combo for you, which is awesome when that happens because it's just additional damage, and you could set all kinds of fun stuff up like that in the game, and that was not present in the original. It adds a whole new element to turn-based RPG combat that hasn't been present, so it was really fun. The open world doubling up, and what I mean by that is you have Hawaii, but you also have Japan. So it's not just the same exact maps that you've seen in every Yakuza game or the recent Judgment series repeated. It's also a brand new map in Hawaii, and it's a big map, and there's a lot to do. Multiple malls, shopping centers, restaurants, the beach, all kinds of stuff. Residential areas as well. And it was very entertaining to do that, to go to Hawaii and feel like you're on a vacation almost. It was funny because my wife's like, oh, I want to go to Hawaii now. I'm like, well, it would be great if we could, but, you know, not right now, but maybe in the future we'll go. But anyway, yeah, like, it was great to have that. So 2 maps instead of 1, improved combat. I would argue the graphics are better, but of course, it's a generation jump. Like, the last game was on the last gen consoles, and this one's on, obviously, the current gen, so it's going to run a little better no matter what. And the sheer amount of content. There's way more content in Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth than in the previous Like a Dragon. Just insane amounts of side content. And it's because there's 2 protagonists. If it was just Kazuma Kiryu or just Ichiban Kasuga, that would have been fine. But having 2 protagonists doubled up the amount of content. So now you have different storylines, different teams of fighters that you're leveling up and going back and forth between. Different side content. You know, the more traditional Yakuza side content was for Kasuga, but then there was different kinds of reminiscing and stuff with the plotline of Kiryu, who basically, in a nutshell, everyone knows this at this point, Kiryu is diagnosed with cancer, and so his plot is basically, it's kind of like his bucket list last hurrah to do things, to reminisce about his life and what he's done, to make amends for things he's done wrong, and he's kind of has all these heartfelt plot lines going on. So it's a very different feel than the last game, which was very, very more over-the-top silly. this one still has that kind of madcap humor with Kasuga, but has a lot of serious emotional stuff with Kiryu. Okay, so it's got everything, right? So that's the good. The bad. I would say the worst part of the game, and this is kind of sad, all right, is the plot. Because there's two protagonists. They almost tried to take two plots and crush them together, and it doesn't really hold up. For example, there's one whole plot line about a religious group of people who later on are revealed to be like a crime syndicate. It's like, what? Huh? Okay. But then on the other side, there's almost like a typical Yakuza plot line of someone who's trying to revive the Yakuza and do all this stuff after the events of the previous Like a Dragon where all the Yakuza were dissolved. Well, these guys are trying to like do stuff with the Yakuza again. And it's like, what? Like, so there's two plots, and then they very almost sloppily try to slap them together and make them relate to each other, but they don't really. And quite frankly, as you get further and further into the game, the plot makes less sense. Like, I'll give you a key example here. So there's a criminal organization that essentially has a front where it looks like it's a religion, but really it's a bunch of criminal organization stuff going on. But the people are kind of brainwashed into almost like a cult, right? Well, the plot is, oh, there's a child who has a pendant. And because the child has the pendant, the leadership of this organization is at stake because the child should actually be the true inheritor of the organization. And it's like, what? It's a criminal organization. The reason that people follow the guy in charge is because he's like a criminal ringleader. No one cares if a kid has a fucking pendant. Take the pendant, throw it in the fucking toilet, and flush. No one gives a shit if the kid should be the true leader. They just, you know what I mean? That doesn't make any sense. The only way that would make sense is if this were like in Europe and we were talking about like lines, lineages, bloodlines, and the bloodline should be the true king or queen or monarch or ruler. And there could be an usurping if someone else was found to be of the purest bloodline. That's a little different, you know? We're not talking European medieval politics. We're talking modern day. This cult is basically a criminal organization. So why in the holy hell would anyone care about a kid with a pendant? It doesn't make any sense. And this is like a critical plot line in the whole game that never really is explained properly in any way, shape, or form. It's just comical. So, it was kind of bad in that regard. So the bad, in my opinion, is the story. Not that it's an awful story, but basically when you finish the game, you feel unfulfilled. Like, both final boss fights kind of feel underwhelming because you don't get that ultimate climax feeling like you would get usually from a Yakuza game. And quite honestly, one of the plot lines just feels like filler. That's kind of stupid because it felt like it was going somewhere at one point, and then it just ends up being just like, oh, that was just busy work. And a lot of people are also upset because there's two protagonists, so both protagonists can't fight the true final boss, and only one gets to fight the true final boss, and then the other one kind of gets left high and dry, and people are like, it's kind of lame that only one protagonist really gets a true ending, right? And I agree there too. You know, that's kind of sad that they weren't together for the finale. That would have probably been better. Because originally they actually were in a party together earlier in the game, and then they never rejoined to have a party together ever again. Okay, so that's the good and the bad. What's the ugly? Well, the ugly is this game has content that just feels tacked on for the sake of having added content, but it really adds absolutely nothing to the game. So, for example, there's a whole island simulation style minigame called Dondoko Island that originally was spun as, oh, look, it's going to be like your own Animal Crossing, but in the style and the world of Like a Dragon, where you're going to have an island where you build buildings and businesses, and you're going to have visitors come, and they're going to pay money to visit your island, and you're going to try to please them by giving them presents and things, and then you're going to continuously improve your island and do things like that. You're like, oh, that sounds like a unique and fun concept to have that in an RPG like this. It's never been done before. And then when you actually play it, you realize there's no point to doing it. All it ever does is it gives you a little bit of money, which is good early on in the game to have that extra money. It is kind of a boost. But all you get for completing it is essentially like a trophy or an achievement and an ultimate super attack that you never need to use in the game. It's just like overpowered, so you never needed it at all. Never at any point does it feel like an organic part of the game. It just feels like a whole tacked on thing. And after you do it for a few hours, it's very boring. At first, it's interesting as you're opening up new parts of it, but basically, once you get to a certain part of it, you're not going to really be doing anything new. It's just the same loop of, get the resources, build the businesses and buildings, have the people come visit, appease the people when they're visiting, fend off any attackers that show up, wash, rinse, repeat, unlock a new part of the island, do the same thing, and it just becomes this boring grind. And you're like, why am I doing this? There's literally no point to it. It's pretty disappointing, okay? Now, the other part is the Sujimon. Yes, Sujimon sounds like Pokemon for a reason, because they wanted to copy Pokemon and have something like that in the game, again, as a side activity. And there's a whole deal where as you're fighting certain enemies, after the fight's over, you'll actually recruit the enemy as one of your Sujimon, and you can use them in the Sujimon League later on in Sujimon battles. You'll find Sujimon raids throughout the open world maps that you can do. There's an entire plot line with the Sujimon League fighting these basically gym leaders and stuff like that. Basically, it sounds fun, right? Except once again, it's totally not needed. It doesn't add anything to the game. The only thing you get at the very end of the game, if you complete this Sujimon League, which takes an average 5 to 8 hours to complete, is a new job for one of your characters. And it's the best job in the game, but it's not needed. It's overpowered. Much like the ultimate attack you get from Dondoko Island, you get a job you don't need. And it's like, so why did I spend 5 to 8 hours doing this? It's a throwaway weird side event that doesn't have any impact on the story, doesn't really help you. Why did I do it, right? So I'll tell you, I did half of Dondoko Island, and then I got bored and stopped. I literally never did Sujimon at all. Never once in the playthrough did it ever seem like a time that I should be doing it, or it never even made sense to do it. Okay? So I feel like the game has dramatic improvements over the first, but sadly the plot's not as good because it kind of goes in different directions, and that's not good. It's not focused enough. And it has a lot of really lame tacked on side content that just doesn't feel in place whatsoever. And that's sad. So overall, listen, I like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. I think it's a great game. I had a ton of fun playing it and hanging out with my audience when I played it. But overall, it just feels like kind of a little bit of a step in the wrong direction. I hope that the next one becomes more focused like they always have been and doesn't have as much bloated extra content you don't need. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't need to be there, and it's just distracting. If you're going to have content, make it meaningful. Make it mean something. Don't have it there just to have it there. Have it there to attach something that's of value to the game. Not, oh, I just blew 8 hours on something, and it didn't matter that I did it. Like, if I'd spent 8 hours on Sujimon, it literally wouldn't have affected the playthrough in any way or helped. It just would have just happened. So, who cares? You know what I'm saying? Like, content for the sake of content is not valid content. It has no value. You have to make content attached to something to be valid. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, maybe if you complete the Sujimon League, you get some big reward at the end that's worth it, rather than a job you don't need because there's enough jobs in the game. Maybe a super rare weapon that's really good, or maybe a buff, or maybe, you know what I mean? Or something. Give me something. Anyway, overall, I like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. It's right in line with the previous Like a Dragon / Yakuza games. If you liked Yakuza Like a Dragon, you're definitely going to like this game. Just don't expect the plot to be as serious or as good as previous Yakuza games, because it isn't, because it kind of loses its focus because it's two people. Okay? Cool. That's my final thoughts on Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Okay, so now it is time for me to give you my final thoughts after having played over 140 hours. In fact, again, let's just make this official. My playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3 ended at 142 parts. Some parts were longer than an hour. Some parts were a little shorter. So let's just say it was a 142-hour playthrough. Okay? And during that playthrough, I did the vast majority of content that was available. Like, I tried to actively do all side quests that I found. Yes, there was a few that I skipped, but definitely not that many. I made an active effort to complete all major plot lines, including all the companion quests and things like that by the end of the game, to get good resolutions for all of my party members. And, man, I'm sorry, I got a frog in my throat. I think my allergies are starting to act up finally. I think the season is here because I'm feeling it today. Anyway, I did a lot. I mean, obviously, 142-hour playthrough. I put a lot of time and investment into this playthrough, correct? And originally, keep in mind, I didn't want to play the game. I knew, 100%, I knew that Baldur's Gate 3, all right, was going to be a playthrough that was going to take up so much of my time that it was going to be a hindrance. I knew whenever I played it, it was going to be that way. Like, I just felt it, right? Because I had a big crowd of people demanding I play it. I did not play it when it was new in September of last year. I held off the entirety of the busy gaming season, and thankfully I did. Because could you imagine me trying to balance a 142-hour-long game with all the new releases of last fall? It never would have worked. Never. People would have completely lost interest waiting for me to play it the next time. Baldur's Gate 3 is definitely the kind of game where if you're going to play it, you have to reserve your time for it. Because this game is complex, it's rich in lore and content, and you essentially need to immerse yourself in it to get good at it so that you can play it and enjoy it. If you're playing this game casually, once or twice a week, you can't really enjoy it that much. You really do need to be playing it like nonstop to get into the game, or else the thing is you'll make so little progress, it'll feel like a trickle of water going into a lake, right? You don't want that. You want to have a stream. And you don't get that stream moving feeling unless you're playing it a lot. So, overall, what do I think about Baldur's Gate 3? Well, first of all, one of the things that I was afraid of that I was pleased with finding was that unlike the previous game from Larian Studios that I had played, of Divinity Original Sin 2, excuse me, this game had really good graphics, especially whenever there was a cutscene or a dialogue, it would be cinematic and zoom in on your party. That's something that Divinity never did. And I was always like, why is everyone always a tiny figure on the screen, right? Well, this game, you could actually, it looked really good when they zoomed in and stuff. So they did a good job with that. I definitely like the dialogue options, because there always was, it's not like 1 or 2 or 3 options. There's like 5 or 6 options. And then there'll be special options depending on the character build you made. So for example, if you're good at charisma, you could try to persuade or lie with deceit. Right? Or if you're, oh, I'm a sorcerer, so I have knowledge others don't, so I can have this sorcerer option that I can say, or something like that. The dialogue was well done in that regard. I like the variety of characters. It's not like it's everyone's samey. Everyone is very unique and different right from the get-go. No 2 characters feel too alike in the game, which is great. And the world, man, what a huge world. And it's funny because at first you start playing it and you're like, maybe it's not so big because the map doesn't look that big. But as soon as you start exploring and you realize everything is rich with content, everything has a fight or that's unique, or dialogue with characters that's interesting, or a mission, or loot to find, or a hidden area. Like, no area is just there just for the sake of being there and boring and empty. Like, everything you can tell is hand designed. What do they call it? Curated. It's specially curated to be a special encounter or a unique opportunity to do something in the game. And I compare this to, say, Elden Ring. One of my major complaints about Elden Ring was that its open world, even though it was big, had a lot of empty space with nothing going on, and or samey shit that was so repetitive and boring because you're fighting the same enemy for the 8 millionth time. And that doesn't happen in Baldur's Gate 3. You get very few repeat encounters, actually. There's no general mob mentality in this game where you're fighting the same guys over and over. Every encounter is kind of a unique one where you might encounter something new and different that you've never seen before, or maybe a variation on it, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just interesting in that way. I very rarely have ever seen a game where every single encounter seems to have been handcrafted to be something special and unique by the game devs. You can tell that a lot of attention to detail went into that in the game. Okay? Music is pretty good. You know, it's all medieval music in that regard, but it's nice. If you like the fantasy medieval aspect, you know, Lord of the Rings style stuff, you're going to love this game. I mean, it's set in the world of Dungeons and Dragons. So, yeah, and of course, I would assume if you're a fan of Dungeons and Dragons, it's probably even bigger for you, because I don't know of another game that's ever been on this grand of a scale and represented something like that. But for me, like, I didn't know D&D going into this. You know, the only D&D exposure I'd had was watching the movie last year that came out. What was it? Honor Among Thieves. Like, that was literally it. So I can imagine that if you're a fan of D&D, you were probably like feasting on this game, right? To see your D&D favorite lore and things brought forth into living, breathing representation. You know what I'm saying? In a video game, it probably felt like all that came alive instead of just sitting there and playing the game with your friends, tabletop RPG elements. You actually get to see it visualized and you get to control it with a controller and everything. It must be pretty awesome, right? So in that regard, there's a lot of positives about the game. I can tell you, as an outsider to this style of game, I don't play this certain style of RPG. I grew up playing traditional JRPGs. So trying to get into this more strategic one, oh man. It's like an education. It's like going to boot camp. Really? That's what it feels like. Like you're going to boot camp and there's a drill sergeant on your ass, yelling up your ass at you. Hey, dude, you learn this? 10 hunt, motherfucker. It's like, geez. Here comes the first fight. Okay, everyone's slow as shit. No one can move very far. You only have limited turns, limited abilities. Every time you do something, there's a dice roll. It's like, what the fuck is going on? I immediately like, my fucking head is rattled. I don't know what's happening. What are these radial dials on my screen? What the fuck? Turn order, like, huh? There's like 700 menus upon menus and hidden menus in the menus and pressing buttons with the menus on the menus. Like, what the hell am I doing here? And I'm going to be honest with everyone. And I said this at the beginning of the game, and I'll say it now that I've beaten it. This game is not easy accessible at all. At all. It's not. If I did not have a live streaming audience along for the ride with me, okay, to basically hang out with me and help me to understand and learn this game, I would not have continued to play it. My brain would have been jumbled and rattled so much, and I would have gotten frustrated at things that were happening that I didn't understand, that I would have quit this game. Just being straight up honest with all of you. Now, I'm not saying the game is bad. I'm not at all. I'm saying that this game is very similar to, say, the first time you ever play a From Software game, right? Like, remember the first time I played Dark Souls in 2011? I didn't know what I was getting into. I certainly didn't do any prerequisite research or anything, right? I just walked right into the game to play it. And I started playing it. I was like, what the fuck is this? What bonfires? And why do I roll like I'm a fucking weigh 700 pounds? Why are my moves so slow? Why can't I react to anything? I feel like a slug. Why does everything hit me for 99% damage? Why do I have so few healing items? Why is every enemy so ridiculously overpowered, right? But once you get it, once you play a FromSoft game and you understand all the mechanics and you learn them, you learn the way of the game, the way of the world. And now you start to get better, and then you start to feel a level of accomplishment at your improvement. And if you actually beat a tough boss or you get through a really hard area, you feel like, yes, I did it. And then at the end of the game, you're like, wow, I actually just beat a FromSoft game, and these games are infamously hard, right? It's kind of the same feeling in Baldur's Gate 3. If you can learn the mechanics, if you can learn the systems, and if you can get used to the style of gameplay that it is, you will actually feel like immersed in this universe and definitely start to like it. But by no means, you must understand, this is not a game for a casual person to just jump into and get it right away, nor is it a game that if you only have a little bit of time to play that you should even attempt it. You have to really immerse yourself in this game to get it. You have to. If you don't, you're going to be very disappointed. Really. I can't imagine someone who maybe has never played this style of game before, who doesn't like D&D, jumping into this game feet first, and within a few hours, being, oh, I love it. You're like, no, you're like, oh, my head fucking throbbing right now, dude. Like, it's just I can't take it, you know? So, that's my take on it, and you could disagree, and that's fine, but that's definitely how I felt about it, is, man, giant learning curve. You need to either study or have someone help you with it, but once you get it, it'll be more fun. Now, like I said, one thing that's definitely unique about this game that I absolutely have never seen in a game before, that every fight feels unique and different. No really repeated enemies or anything like that. Everyone's like a unique fighter or enemy or you know, there's some repeat enemies, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, it's like they really put attention into making every fight feel unique, and that's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword because you're never going to get bored with the combat, but at the same time, when you're playing at hour 1, hour 10, hour 40, hour 80, hour 100 and hour 140, no matter what fight you're doing, there's likely going to be an element that you haven't seen before or didn't expect, and you're going to get thrown for a loop. And typically, with an RPG, at least my style, bear with me here, because this is what I like, is that when you've played enough of an RPG, you feel at home. You're like, I feel comfortable now, because I understand the mechanics of my party. I understand the mechanics of the combat. I know the variables of what the enemies can do. And so I can, after having practiced and leveled up and maybe grinded a bit and making a build for my party that I like, I can relax. I can sit back and say, it's time to do some combat. Oh, an encounter? No big deal. Let's just get right through this. And in Baldur's Gate 3, it's like, an encounter? Oh, what the fuck is that? What the hell's going on? What is this? What's going on? Why can't I control my party? Why is this element? What is smoke? What the fuck? I can't see. What the fuck? Stunned? Where did my character go? They warped out of existence? Every fight feels like that. It's like, what the fuck is going on? And you have to like kind of like be on your toes every single fight in the game to know what the hell's happening, right? So it's crazy in that regard. And again, I've never seen a game like that in my life, not once. And it's unique in that regard. But if you're someone who like, listen, the reason I play RPGs is because I like to relax. You can't relax playing Baldur's Gate 3. Like, you literally can't. It's not a relaxing game. It's a game that you always got to be on your best, because you might get slapped around if you're not paying attention. Now, there's an element in this game for sure that actually is a hidden element in most RPGs. In this game, they make it very prominent, okay, is the dice rolls. In any other RPG, when you're in combat or you're doing something, you always have a chance that something will hit, a chance that something will do a critical hit, things like that. The thing is, you never see it, right? In Baldur's Gate 3, they right up front say, hey, everything in this game is a dice roll. So every time that you're going to have dialogue, you might have to do a dice roll for a persuasion check. You might have to do a dice roll for a dexterity check. Hey, you want to pick that lock? You better roll to see if you can pick the lock. It's like, whoa. Again, never do you ever see that as an active part of any game that you control. It just happens automatically behind the scenes. In this game, it's very prominent. So it's funny if you don't know D&D or whatever, and you're like, what the fuck is this die on the screen? Why is it, what is going on with this thing? A 20-sided die is rolling all over the screen? Like, what is this? And then even, the other thing is, even if you've completely prepared yourself for something, you could still fail. You could still roll a 1 and lose because it's just insanely bad luck. On the flip side of that, you could be the most unprepared oaf. Like, you could be the most uncoordinated oaf and do a athletics roll and get a 20, which is the perfect roll, and still pass it. So it's kind of this randomness factor in the game that, again, I've never really seen in a game before, or at least if it was present, you never knew it because they never showed it to you. In this game, it's literally in your face at all times, okay? Another thing that I feel is very unique about Baldur's Gate 3 is the incredible amount of moving parts going on in this game at once. Here's what I mean about that. Usually you play an RPG and everything's static, meaning nothing is really moving or changing or evolving around you. It's just waiting for you to arrive. And then once you arrive, now there's stuff that plays out, and then you get through it, and then it's done. But in Baldur's Gate 3, it actually feels like a vibrant living world where everything is happening around you and still happening even if you're not there anymore. There's concurrent actions and things that go on. So a choice that you made early on in the game could come back later on in the game as something very important and influential, and you just didn't realize it. You know, I encountered someone at the beginning and I helped them on the road. Well, now at the end of the game, they're actually there and something happens as a result of you doing that. Or vice versa. Maybe you just wanted to turbo through an area early and you didn't talk to someone and they attacked you. Instead, you killed them. Well, now their plot later on is changed because they're dead or whatever, and it could affect the game. So having that level of moving parts is very interesting. All this vibrant world with everything tying together in a 3-act structure. But ultimately, it gives you probably one of the most unique plots you'll ever see in any RPG. But the problem with something with this many moving parts is that it overcomplicates things. So, for example, you may not have realized that something was so important. And at the end of the game, you're like, well, I definitely wouldn't have done that if I had known that it was important. Well, there's no way to know. Oh, so what do you want me to do? Replay your 140-hour game to make the choice again? Obviously, I'm not going to do that, right? So that's part of the weirdness of the game, is like everything's super important, but at the same time, you don't actually know what's important and what's not. And because there's so much impact to everything you do, you can end up regretting things later on and make you upset. You know, it's true. Also, when you have this many moving parts, as I'm saying, you have way more potential for problems. So, for example, oh, well, something was supposed to happen, but now it didn't. This person disappeared from the game, and I don't know why. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of the same thing with the combat. Like, the combat has so many complexities to it that there's things that don't really work. I'll give you a perfect example of this, okay? So, they made it in the game that there is a certain mechanic that only certain weapons, and there's not that many, but there's certain weapons that in combat, if they are thrown and they connect with an enemy, they return to your hand by magic. So essentially, this creates a throwing build of combat where you can build a character right around. Hey, I just throw everything at people and it comes back to me. And it's cool because it's ranged combat and you can have variables on it. Like I had a weapon that created area of effect damage and I had gloves that made me teleport with the weapon. So I'm throwing this weapon, it's hitting splash damage on a giant crowd of enemies, then it's teleporting me into the crowd of enemies, and now I can choose, do I want to strike the enemies from within this crowd, or do I want to try to teleport myself back out? Like, it's a really unique thing I've never done in any RPG before. But when you have a game with this many variables, the problem is the game has a lot of problems. So, for example, it's been found that if you tried to do this kind of combat in stealth, which is a common thing to do in this game. You go into stealth, and you can get like a cheap hit on an enemy before they even know you're there. Oh, it just doesn't work. What do you mean it doesn't work? Oh, you'll throw the spear or the item, and it won't return to you. It just hits the ground. Why? Oh, I don't know. It's known it doesn't work when you're in stealth. Why? Why would the magic not work? It doesn't even make logical sense. It's just they didn't fucking program it right. And so then you're going to run into all these problems with the game where you can, things work in this situation, but not in this situation. It doesn't make any logical sense that that's the case, but you just need to know that to succeed. Well, that's bullshit, right? That's stupid. And that's the problem. That does happen many times during the game that you'll see things that this should work, doesn't work. Why not? Oh, I don't know. You know, we'll get around to maybe changing it later. Like, what? But again, in another game, you wouldn't care. In another game, the combat is so simple that this kind of shit doesn't happen. They made their combat so complex, and now they opened this Pandora's box of problems that can happen, and it does happen a bunch of times. Now, people in chat are saying, well, they do update it regularly and do bug fixes. I appreciate that. I do appreciate that, but at some point you have to say, well, this is the finished product. It's done now. It's good. And here we are, you know, it came out September of last year. It's the end of March of the next year. You know what I'm saying? Like more than a half year later. And there's still critical flaws being found every day in the game. It's like, because the game's so complex. Some people would argue, well, that's fine. Others are arguing it's just too many problems, right? So, and by the way, there's all kinds of issues with dialogue. Like many times, there's supposed to be dialogue, and the options are invisible. So I can't even tell what I'm picking. I don't even know what line I'm saying. This is invisible. It didn't load. What? There's sometimes characters just hang. They just freeze in place like this. They don't do anything. You have to mash the buttons, and then the game will, like, skip the cutscene. Like, oh, I don't even know what happened now. Because it fucked up, and I had to skip it. You know? There's a lot of bugs like that in the game. Things that just don't work right. You know, near the end of the game, I had a variety of errors that happened all on one stream. I had a stream where a character froze in place and wasn't interactable, so I couldn't finish a quest a certain way. Because the character I couldn't talk to have them do this part of the quest. I had one of my weapons disappear from the entire game and never come back, and it was a legendary weapon that I had built a whole character around. I was like, what the hell is this? Just really, like, that's the thing, is there's so much that can go wrong with a game this complex. So maybe that's one of the reasons what makes it unique. But at the same time, can you imagine being someone who's invested this much time? Maybe this is the longest game you've ever played in your life. And you invest that much time and you really care about the game, and then the game says, ha, screw you, and screws you over 3-4 times in a row with game bugs and problems. You're like, whoa, you know, that it doesn't feel like it's fair because you've put so much of your time into the game, and then the game just has all these issues that still aren't fixed all these months later. Like, what happened here? Right? Like, it's kind of disrespectful to someone who spent that much time on your game to have this problem that could ruin the playthrough. And another thing, please understand this one. This is very important. The combat in this game is not meant to be rushed through. Basically, you're supposed to be checking out all these variables. So, for example, if you're encountering a new enemy, the first thing you should do is check their stats and see, do they have any buffs? Do they have any specific weaknesses? Do they have anything special going on in their stat page? Because that's what you do in D&D. And that's exactly what you should be doing in this game. So whenever you're encountering new enemies, you should be checking them out. And that immediately takes several minutes to go through, you know? And then you got to kind of carefully plan out what you're doing because every character's build is completely different. Are you trying to sneak up and get stealth attacks from range, or maybe trying to sneak up close but being invisible? You're trying to do an area of effect damage spell? Are you trying to do a chain attack? Are you a warrior who could run up and just start beating the crap out of everyone? And the more you hit them, the more turns you get. And that's all very important stuff to learn. But if you rush through combat, you're bound to make mistakes or lose opportunities that you could have had. And then what's going to happen is you're going to end up reloading. And what's the point of that? You know, like I always felt like in an RPG, unless something critically bad happened, like let's say you did a dialogue choice and it sounds like you were saying one thing, but the game it takes it another way. And all of a sudden a person aggroes and now you got to fight them. Wait, no, I didn't mean it that way. So I'm not going to fucking accept that. You're going to reload and pick the other dialogue option, right? And that happened a couple times during the playthrough as well. But for the most part, do you really want to play a giant fight that takes 20 to 30 minutes to complete? Because a lot of these fights have tons of enemies all in different positions and everything. You got to move around to hit them. Do you really want to do another half an hour of the same fight after having played 30 minutes for that fight? No exaggeration, there were hour-long battles in this game. 1 hour long for one battle. Now, of course, I'm talking big boss fights and stuff. But still, that's a lot of time investment to say, oh, something went wrong with the game, reload it and do it over. No, I'm not fucking doing it over. I just put all that effort into it. That sticks, you know? So, that's the thing. I feel like, at least for me, the Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough is going to stand out as a unique one that I've done in my I mean, I'm 16 years as a content creator pretty much, and I plan on doing many more, but it's just going to always be like a unique thing because it's just such a different kind of game. Having that many variables, that much complexity to the combat, that much intricacy to all the plot lines and the missions and the things that are going on in the universe and how they all intertwine and can interact with each other and change the outcome of everything, right? It's just wild. I've never seen a game like that before. But man, do you need to have investment of so much time, so much effort, studying or researching or having people along for the ride with you like my stream chat was. Thank God you guys were here again. If this was the kind of game before I was a streamer, an interactive streamer, if I tried to play this for myself, I would have quit. I would not have been able to get through it. I would have been frustrated to high hell by this game, and I would have just said, forget it. But because you guys were there, it allowed me to enjoy the game, so thank you for that. You know, but even then, at the end, there's bugs. Like in my finale, the game kept giving me options, saying things that I was like in love with some guy who was a random party member who I never used. It's like I never did any romance options in the game. I never did any romance dialogue in the game at all. Yet the game is still acting like I did at the end of the game and acting like this is an option. But then when you actually go and talk to the guy directly, there's no option for that. So everyone else you're talking to is saying, oh, this guy, I really like this guy. Like, well, I'm not going to say that, but why is that option there? It doesn't even make sense that there's like a romance option in the dialogue when you're talking to other people. Then when you go to talk to the guy, it doesn't exist. So it's like the game fucked up. It thought there was a romance that didn't happen, and then it took it away. It's just so weird. Again, when you have this many variables and moving parts, that's what happens is you can have these kind of weird issues go down. And I will say this, 142 or so hours, right? I definitely enjoyed my time in Baldur's Gate 3. Okay, I did. It was an education for sure, and it was something unique and something that I will remember forever. I don't know if I would do it again. Really. Like, it took that much out of me. It was 4 months of my streams. It was no exaggeration. I think it was like 60 to 70 different streams I did of this game. Yeah, it was like that many streams or something like that. An insane amount of streams of Baldur's Gate 3 to finish it. And it gets to the point where it's like, I just felt so tired by the end that I was getting, I just want to finish it. You know, it's so long. It's like you're exhausted at a time. And I don't know if that's a good thing. You know, typically when I get exhausted with a game, right, it means one of two things. It either means like I really just don't like it anymore, or it means that it's just too much. And, you know, I used to be a competitive fighting game player. And I used to play the living heck out of Street Fighter and its variable spin-off titles and things. And there'd be times when I got burnout. Like, I was playing so much of this thing that I would get tired. I would need to step away for months sometimes. Sometimes I would take 2-3 months off and not touch Street Fighter. And then I would come back to it and I would feel refreshed and ready for it, right? And I almost feel like with this game, perhaps that's something that you need to do too, is you need to like step back and relax sometimes, because when you're getting so into the game, it just could seem like it's just a lot. You know what I mean? It's just, especially with a game this long, it's like, man. But for me, I couldn't really do that. Like, I needed to keep it moving because I needed to eventually finish it. Or if I put this game on hiatus for months, no one was going to ever come back to watch it, right? So I would kind of felt pressured that I had to keep going, keep going, keep going. And that's not a good thing, honestly. You know what I mean? Like, I really feel like because of its insane amount of content and length, that it's a daunting thing. Like, you need to know what you're getting into when you start playing a game like this before you get sucked in. And now next thing you know, I wasn't planning on playing this for 3 months, but now I am, right? So, basically, I really like the game, but at the same time, it's not my favorite game of all time. For me, the thing that kind of brought it down were the level of bugs and things that were happening. About halfway through the game, they really started to hit, and then that final act, Act 3, is when the game really starts to break in parts, where the combat starts to get messy, things start to go awry with bugs and issues. I had a whole fight where my character was invisible. I'm not kidding. My character was literally invisible, so I couldn't tell where they were. There's no explanation for it. I was just invisible. Like, what the fuck's going on? Right? Imagine you're playing a fighting game, and all of a sudden your character's invisible. Well, I don't want to play anymore. You know? What the fuck just happened? So, that's the thing. Like, again, I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. I kind of like, I enjoyed playing it because I got an education on that style of game. It was a crazy undertaking, and I mean, I hate to say it, sadly, it hurt the channel because of how long it was, and people aren't used to 140-hour games on this channel, nor are they used to be playing the same style of game that long, so a lot of people left, saying, I'll come back when Phil does something different, right? And now I'm finally doing something different, hallelujah, and I hope those people will come back. Like, I actually see faces in chat today that I haven't seen for a bit, and I welcome you back, all of you. Who was a Big Mac earlier who said, yeah, I was gone for a while because I didn't care about that, but now I'm back because Phil's playing other games. Welcome back, and thank you. I'm glad that you guys are coming back after being so turned off by me playing RPGs for so dang long. Okay? Okay, so anyway, overall, Baldur's Gate 3 is a good game. I definitely enjoyed it. I can totally understand why people think it's like the best RPG of all time, or why someone would have said, hey, this is my game of the year 2023. For me personally, it's not. Overall, 2023, I still stick with my pick as Alan Wake 2 was my favorite game of the year. It was just the most unique game that I played that year, with the unique plot, but also things I'd never seen in a game before, like musical numbers and all kinds of crazy shit. And it's like, listen, I get it. Baldur's Gate 3 is also incredibly unique. But for me, the complexity of the engine is a little bit too complex for me. It doesn't allow me to relax, which is what I like to do with RPGs. And the bugginess, particularly near the end, definitely holds it back. You know, if this game becomes fully polished, it's probably much better. But for me, losing a legendary weapon at the end of the game that I wanted to finish the game with, because the game is a buggy mess, is bullshit. And any game, like literally in any game, if that would have happened, I would have been upset. It just had to be the game that I played 140 hours, right? It's like, come on. So, like I said, I definitely liked it, but I wasn't in love with it like a lot of people. Maybe if I was a D&D fan, I would have been in love with it. Or maybe if I was used to this more strategic style RPG, I would have loved it. And definitely, I'll tell you this, if I wasn't a variety content creator, if more people were along for the ride with me and would have attended the streams and it would have felt like more of a community vibe, probably I would have liked the game more. But what happened was, after the first few weeks, people just started complaining. It's too much of the same thing. It's too long. It's too boring. It's too long. You know what I mean? And that makes it harder to enjoy. I'm just being honest, you know? Like, if I'm playing a game and everyone's digging it, it makes it better experience for me. And in this case, this is a game that, after having played it for around a month, people just stopped coming by. It was the same group. I liked the core group we had for that game, but it was a small group, you know? I couldn't tell you, honestly, a case where I stuck with a game this long and the parts were getting like 200 views. It's ridiculous. Like, my videos get 300 to 500 views, and this playthrough right now, there's multiple parts of it in the last like 40 hours that don't even have 200 views yet. It's like, what happened, right? Because people just got tired of it. They got exhausted of the same game being so long. And again, that's my audience isn't used to that. So, Yeah, I did like it. I'm glad I played it. I'm glad it's over. I didn't hate it or anything. I'm not crapping on it. I get people who love it and think it's the best game ever. More power to you. Um, but for me, it's kind of like a great experience. Glad I played it to know what it is. But I definitely don't think I would do something like that again, at least in the near future. I can't be playing 140-hour games that take 4 months and drag the channel. I just can't. I have to be doing variety. That is what I'm good at. Juggling a lot of different games that are variety of games. That's my forte. And a lot of people even say, man, I don't know how you do it. How do you play a horror game in the morning, a fighting game at night, a shooter, then you jump into an RPG, then you do that? I'm just used to it. I've been doing it now for 15 years. You know what I'm saying? So it's just kind of a thing that I've gotten good at. And in this case, I wasn't able to do that for many months because I was playing the same game. So I'm happy to move back to that element now. Pure Solo says, did you like Baldur's Gate 3 more than Starfield? Of course. Starfield sucked. Everyone knows that. Starfield's terrible. That game is a joke. This game was a well thought out, well designed, intricately crafted, curated game. Versus, oh, I just decided to pump out another game, poop out another turd that looks exactly the same as the last 3 I made. No fucking effort to put anything unique or interesting in it. Just, it's another game from us. Buy it. Right? That's what fucking Starfield feels like. Another turd in the bowl. Okay. Let's get the shout outs because now I've blabbed for a very long time about those 2 games, right? So, we start off today with BB Phil doing a super chat. How about having different chains at 50 USD instead of glasses? Maybe a cool fake gold chain, a medieval chain, a plastic chain? I don't know. Do you guys think we should do different perks? Because this was suggested yesterday. Someone was like, oh, well, just get rid of your perks. You don't need them. No one cares about a hat or a vest anymore. And I was like, I actually feel like that's not true. Like, there are people who distinctly will come by and say, hey, I wanted you to hit your goal today, so here's a tip, and you hit your tiered goal, right? Like, they do that. So I think the tiered goals work. The question is, if you guys are tired of the things that we do, like gunner glasses at $50, pick a hat at $100, pick a vest at $150, we could change it up, but we have to decide what it would be together. I don't know about a variety of necklaces. What do you guys think about that? Baguette did a super chat and says, how are Final Fantasy VII Rebirth fans being entitled when fans of Baldur's Gate 3 demanded you go back to it 1 week after being put on hold? People are invested in watching Final Fantasy VII Rebirth 2. Well, I don't know where they were. I don't know where those people were because I was streaming the game and no one was showing up. Like, I was streaming Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and I looked and I had less than 200 viewers. So it was one of the lowest viewed streams I've ever done. And no one was engaging or supporting on those streams. It was just like people were going off on tangents, talking about sports, talking about shit that I have nothing to do with. So if you actually felt that way about the game, perhaps you should have shown up and engaged and supported with the stream when I was playing it, because then I would have been more inclined to play it more. I'm just being honest here. Like, that's my observation that I saw when I was playing it. Now, as I said, perhaps things could have gone differently if Final Fantasy VII Rebirth came out first before Like a Dragon, because then probably I would have started it, and that would have been the game that I stuck in with and kept playing, and Like a Dragon would have been the one that I put on hold. I'm just saying, it was just timing, a matter of timing, because I was liking Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, quite frankly. I was enjoying it a lot, and the audience just wasn't there for it. Now, I'm not saying that I won't go back to it. I'm just saying we're not going back to it now, because I started Dragon's Dogma 2. I'm more interested in that right now. That's the newer game. That's the one we're focusing on, and I refuse to play 2 RPGs at once right now. I refuse. I'm not playing 2 RPGs like that at the same time. That's not going to work. So it's one at a time. Dragon's Dogma now, maybe Final Fantasy later. If you want Final Fantasy, try showing up for the streams. Okay. Devin709, 25 months as a member, and says, hello, everyone. Hope you had a great day. Thank you, Devin. I hope you're having a good day. BB Phil did another super chat. Said, I really liked your emotional speech during Like a Dragon yesterday, where you compared the story to your own life. That was powerful. Well, thank you, because it was powerful for me, too, because I meant it. Doesn't matter what idiots on the internet say about me. I'm going to persevere and push through it, which was kind of the whole idea behind the game, when you think about it. DNA did a super chat. Says, I noticed you look like Thinner Sal from Comic Pop. I have no idea what that means, but thanks. BB Phil did a super chat. Says, I was ranked 3rd in Europe in Worms World Party in 2004. I wish that I had your kind of evidence with videos versus Jay Wong and other legends. So, well, BB Phil, the truth is, it doesn't matter. Even though there's video evidence of me out there, of me doing well in tournaments and the like, No one cares. They all act like it's all bullshit and didn't exist. Which is hilarious when there is evidence of it all over the net. There's recorded tournament results that were posted on public forums and places. But people just believe what they want to believe, right? Gatsukatsu, thank you so much. 5 months as a member and saying excited for fresh content. Hope you're swell. Thank you, Gatsu. Here's an example of another person who was waiting for fresh content and is back now that we have it. Good to have you here, Gatsu. Okay. Tips. Let's get started with tips. First tip today is a $1.69 tip from Lee. Says, Alone in the Dark has it where the voice actors read the logs you find throughout the game. I thought it was okay at first. Eventually, my patience wore thin, and I read the logs myself. That's actually quite funny. I wonder if we'll do the same thing. Question, do you wish more games had voice actors read the logs to you? You know, it happens so infrequently that I don't know if I have an opinion on it. Like, maybe let's see how it goes in this game. And if it's obnoxious or if it's good, I don't know. I mean, it'll be good to not have to read a lot, you know, verbally, I guess. But I agree, if they're reading it like at a snail's pace, then it could be really annoying, right? I guess we'll have to see how it goes. Thank you for the tip. I received a generous $20 tip this morning from August. Says, I have to say, thank God RPGs are done finally. I might start coming and hanging out again. Thank you, August. I welcome you back. I really do. Anyone who's back today, because we're doing something different and the RPGs are done, I welcome you back wholeheartedly. I'm happy that we can now get back to the variety that we're used to. And I'm sorry that it took months to get to it, but I promise you I'm going to do my best to not do that again. They were good games, but man, it was rough at times, seeing the streams with such low attendance, seeing the videos not getting any views, seeing people complain actively, when the hell are you going to stop, right? Thank you for that. I got a $1 tip from Wilson. One disappointment I have about Alone in the Dark is that no matter which character you choose, you do the same path and the same puzzles and it's the same enemies. It's not like Resident Evil 2 Remake where there's two sides. I see. Yeah, I knew there were two characters. I didn't even know if you could control both of them. So that's an interesting spin. I didn't know that it's the same game no matter what. Perhaps you have to wonder if originally that's what they were intending. Like maybe they intended to have two paths, but the development just didn't work. Because if you remember, this is a game that got delayed. Originally, it was supposed to come out like early last year. Then it got delayed till Halloween. Then it got delayed till Christmas time. Then it got delayed till January. Then it got delayed till now. So maybe they just couldn't make it work, right? I wonder. Okay, I received a $3 tip. Someone says, I never had the bugs that you had in Baldur's Gate 3. Maybe it's a console, but the Halston thing isn't a bug. I wish you didn't avoid the relationship stuff, though. We've already talked about that many times over the course of the playthrough. I ask that you respect my choices in games. I'm going to play games how I want. You play them how you want. And it's that simple. You shouldn't have to force your opinion or your viewpoint or your way of playing a game onto somebody else. I do think that's kind of silly. Okay? Okay. Hold on. I don't know. It looks like someone wrote me a million emails overnight. Oh my God, this one's like a novel. I can't read this right now. It's too long. Okay. I gotta read it later. Let's see here. I got a $25 tip from 1 Minute Man. Go ahead and get him up on the leaderboard and see what he has to say. Okay. He says, in regards to the Baldur's Gate 3 epilogue, since you were looking for a potion of animal speaking, perhaps you could have examined Wither's Room. I did. I searched his room. He didn't have one, I don't think, right? I looked all around. There was all kinds of items in there, but I didn't see a potion of animal speaking. Unless it wasn't labeled when I was holding down right thumbstick. Uh, didn't you feel something's missing in Shadowheart's life like a companion? She's all alone. Her parents are gone. Worshippers of Shar are looking for her. She definitely could have needed someone by her side. What I found weird was why didn't she go back to the wherever she had come from? Like, now you know her parents were worshippers of Selûne or whatever. I don't know how to say it, but she could have gone back to those people and said, "Hey, so I've been lost forever and I want to come back into the fold," and they probably would have welcomed her. But instead, she just she chooses to kind of do her own thing, and that's the plot, I think she would have appreciated it in today's world. She'd be a rare find using Baldur's Gate 3 terminology, maybe even legendary. Perhaps you should have stepped up to the plate. No. Also, 43% refers to the type of ending. All's well that ends well, and not how many who completed the game. But that's what it said, wasn't it? Wasn't it 43%? That was the trophy for completion. Yeah, that was the trophy for completion. So 43% of people who got Baldur's Gate 3 on PlayStation 5 beat it and got a completion trophy. That's what that was. Now, I'm sure tons of people also bought it on PC, but I don't know how many completed it there. I don't even know if it would say. Like, PC probably wouldn't even say, right? They have achievements on PC, but they don't have those percentages, I don't think. So you have no way to tell. But anyway, okay. All right, so it's 20. OID says it's only 20% on Steam. Really? He's probably making that up, but that would be funny. Wow. That would mean that the game sold way more on PC. It probably did, though, right? You would think the sales on PC are probably exponentially bigger than it were on PS5. Just saying. Okay, well, guys, that's what we got for contributions so far. If you have anything you'd like to chat about today, please tag me in the chat. We got a little bit of extra time for Q&A, and then we're going to get ready for the premiere of Alone in the Dark, okay? Excuse me. It's disgusting. I'm sorry about that. No Real Vibes. I'm not going to say anything about the Battlefront collection until I play it again. Okay. He says, would you recommend it now? I haven't played it again. I can't recommend anything until I play it again. Felix the Maid says, a true fan would never leave due to a specific game. They would stay and watch regardless. I don't know if I agree with that. If you particularly just don't like something that someone's doing, why would you stick around and just complain about it, right? Like, for example, let's say you have a favorite actor and they act in a ton of different kinds of movies. If there's a particular movie that you don't like, are you going to force yourself to watch it just because an actor's in it? I wouldn't. I'd say I will choose to abstain from watching that particular film, and I'll go watch other films, the style of which I know that I would enjoy. I make enough content that at any given time, if you're not liking what I'm doing currently, you can go watch something from my past that you probably haven't seen that's of the style you like, or you can just wait a couple weeks and I'll probably be on to something completely different, right? That's the thing about being a variety content creator is I have so much content out there that you can watch at any given moment, right? Like, for example, make no bones about it. If I haven't been around for 15 years with the views that I was getting on this channel for the last 2 months, if there wasn't legacy content people were watching, I would have been dead. I would have gone out of business. No shit. I'm not lying about that at all. With the view dip that I had during RPG Overload, I would have died in this business. But luckily, I have legacy content, and people were going back and watching the legacy content, or they were coming and checking out the new Retro React streams, or they were doing something to watch something. You understand? But yeah, like, I'm happy because, again, it would have been worse, way worse. I'm a unique case for sure, being around as long as I have been. So, Rollor, the last thing I'm thinking about now is playing more RPGs in the future. But thanks for the suggestion of Legend of Dragoon. Katsu says, in my case, if there's a game that I want to play, I dodge spoilers. I also have an unending backlog, therefore I have to skip a lot of games that I really want to play. There you go. Jade says, the Zilla movie was good. Zilla looked cool and Kong looked just okay. So you think Godzilla looked better. I'll definitely check it out when it hits max, probably in a few months, right? I'll check it out because I liked the last Godzilla vs. Kong movie. BB Phil says you should do way more with your Street Fighter legacy. Don't hide it away because some people belittle your achievements. What exactly would I do with it? Well, the thing is, the games that I liked the most and was good at, like Super Turbo, they don't really have much competition anymore. It's a side tournament, or it's a little event here or there. The game doesn't get that much hype or excitement for it, in the modern era. It's all about the hot new game, right? And listen, I tried to play the hot new game. I did. I got pretty good at Street Fighter 6, but the thing is, I don't have any aspirations to become competitive. I literally have no desire to go to a tournament and play someone. I just don't care. I've been there, done that. I've lived that lifestyle. I don't like that lifestyle. I don't want to go back to that lifestyle. I respect people who do, who live that grind, but I don't want to live that grind. I got a nice life with a variety content, a family. I don't want to go to the grind of being a competitive player again. So, I don't care, right? Oh, let's see here. I received a $3 tip. Anonymous tipper. How many hours a week would you say you work, including uploading and everything? Do you ever get exhausted? Oh, yeah. I mean, in any given day, all right? I'm working before I'm on stream because I'm researching, things for stories. I'm approving and looking through comments. I'm reading emails. So I'm probably doing work at least an hour before I ever even set foot on a stream. Then I'm streaming every day. Stream goes on around 10:45 a.m. Runs till roughly 4 p.m. Then after that, I'm uploading. I'm setting up streams for the night, doing all that. So I'm in here at least another half an hour after my stream goes off the air. And then I'm in here again, probably around 6:30-ish that night, setting up that late stream, getting that set up. After my late stream goes offline, I got a ton of work to do. I got to set up the next streams for the next day. I got to do the daily schedule ending, depending on what's going on the next day. Some days I got to set up playlists for the next day if it's the React show. I got to upload videos overnight for my video editors to work on for the throwback channel, So in any given day, let's just add that up. If you're talking on stream, the first stream will be about 5.5 hours. The late stream would be about 3 hours. So right there, that's about 8.5 hours just on stream. But if you add the work that I'm doing around the streams, that's probably another 2 to 3 hours of work. So probably in a given day, it's probably around 10 to 11 hours of work in one day, roughly. And it could vary. Some days there's way less. Some days there's a lot more. It depends on what's going on. And that's 6 days a week. So on average in a week, I probably work 60 to 70 hours, roughly, depending on what's going on. Do I ever get exhausted? Absolutely. There's days when I'm beat and I just want to get out of here and go plop on the couch and sit there with my wife and relax and watch something. And I can't. I got to be in here another hour doing shit after the stream's over. I'm like, dude, I just want to get the fuck out of here. And I can't. That's life, though. It's work. Is it a fun job? Absolutely it is, but it is a job. And I treat it seriously like a job. And a lot of people don't. A lot of people say, oh, streaming's a joke or whatever. Maybe that's because other streamers aren't as serious as I am or don't treat it like a professional thing. I do. But that's why I have a set schedule. That's why I'm here on time every day. People, making jokes about that, you're a fucking idiot. I treat it like a job because it is my job and I take it seriously. And that's why I'm still here after 15 plus years of doing it. And other people have, blown out of like a fart out of your ass into the wind and they're not here anymore, So thank you for the $3 tip. Oh, let's see. Yeah, Multiverse is coming back in May. I'm interested in checking it out and see what they've improved. What motivates me most to keep toughing through stuff? The fact that I love my job. I absolutely love being here with you guys every day. This is fun as hell to me. This is way better than any job I've ever had. I feel appreciated. I really do, because you guys come by and hang out and support my streams, and obviously it's because you like them. And because I work my butt off and you enjoy it, it's kind of a what do they call this? A reciprocation of appreciation. And, it works, right? As opposed to busting your ass at some office job somewhere. And then after working, overtime and unpaid and going crazy and then get laid off, which is what happened to me. And I like the fact that we can do fun things and change it up, and you guys give me feedback, and that creates more interesting things, right, to do. I really enjoyed this whole uh, more interactive nature of content creation the last few years, where really I've opened up to suggestion. I mean, take a look at my streams now compared to how they looked and sounded. Just, the camera, the quality, the visuals, the audio is better. Everything's better because I listened. Because I didn't sit here like a stubborn idiot, obstinate, and say, no, no, no. I listened, and now things are so much better. And we got new events coming out and things constantly that we're doing that are fun, right? That's because of the feedback and again, that reciprocation of appreciation, right? Let's see here. I received a $10 tip from Chakak. Did Phil finish Baldur's Gate 3? Yes. What did it cost? Everything, in my Thanos voice. You should have said the Thanos voice first, and I would have tried to do it. But I didn't realize that I screwed it up. There you go. Okay. He hate me, DSP superfan, tip me $1, says, I'm sitting alone in my underwear in my basement watching your stream. My wife has left me, my children won't talk to me, and I lost my job to an electric touchscreen. Can I get him banned? No. Thanks for the $1 tip. For God's sake, put some pants on. All right. Let's see here. Anything to say to fans who don't want Elden Ring? We want to avoid RPG overload a second time if possible. It's weird because as much as I know, excuse me, hold on. Stupid allergies. I'm telling you, there's got to be allergies hitting me now with this stupid gunk in my throat today. As much as I know that Elden Ring technically is an RPG, I just don't feel like it is. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because it's so action-based or it's so difficult. It just feels like its own genre to me. It does. It stands out like Soulsborne games are their own genre. And therefore, if you were to tell me, oh, you're going to be playing Dragon's Dogma 2, but you're also going to be playing Elden Ring, I don't see them as equivalent. I just don't. I really don't feel like they are. And I think that people come out to watch Soulsborne differently than, say, another RPG for sure. Like, there's an audience for Soulsborne, and now I haven't done it in a year, and people want me to prepare for the DLC. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a timely time to do it. I don't see, like doing Elden Ring and Dragon's Dogma 2 as doing the same kind of game twice. I just don't. Maybe you disagree, but I feel like it's going to be totally different. But maybe you disagree, and that's fine. I agree. You have the right to disagree. If you feel it's too samey, we could maybe try to do it so I'm never playing the two on the same day, right? Like, maybe I won't play Dragon's Dogma 2 and Elden Ring. Maybe we'll alternate. If I'm going to do one as a stream, then I do a different thing at night, and I swap them around. We try to figure that out, because you're right. Elden Ring is coming in April. For sure, Elden Ring is returning at some point in April, because we need to go through and finish that second run. Or at least, okay, we don't need to finish the second run. We need to get to the Mohg's Blood Palace, right? We need to finish that version of Mohg, because that's where the DLC starts. So we at least have to get that far. Like, I don't know if I would do the Hallig Tree again. I don't think it's going to be necessary. Plus, it might overlevel me. I don't know. I'm thinking, do the magic stuff that I was going to do. So finish the underground area. Remember, you finally get to that giant alien. Kill the alien. Get to the magic plateau. Fight the dragons, right? The Ronnie questline or whatever the hell it is, which is for my build. Then go to the northeast, the frozen area, the giant area. Fight the giant boss. Do all that shit. And then that gets you to your access to the Mohg area. Go underground, the Blood Palace. Do that. And that's probably where we'll leave it. And then wait until the DLC comes out. But just what I described could literally take 20 hours. So, that's what we're going to do. Sometime in April, we'll start that up again. Okay. No Super Lives. I don't know. I didn't play Black. He keeps asking me questions. Just listen to this question. I hope Black Myth Wukong is a groundbreaking game like Dark Souls and Sekiro. Do you agree? I all we know is from what we've seen is like previews and stuff. I don't really jump on games like that. Like, I don't even think I want to talk about Black Myth Wukong. It's not out. There's not a demo. You can't really say anything about it yet. Do the previews look promising? Yes. But I'm not like, oh yeah, it's going to be a groundbreaking game. It's going to be amazing. So blah, 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 blah. I don't get ahead of myself like that with games. You know what I mean? It sounds like you're getting like all amped up. I don't get amped up for shit this early. Let's wait and see. Dabian says you can't really overlevel for the DLC. It's using a Sekiro-style separate scaling system. Every boss you beat makes you stronger in the DLC. Huh? I don't even know what that means. I don't remember how Sekiro worked. So I don't know what that means. How would Witcher 3 rank in the RPGs I've played? Oh, pretty high up there. Even though I wasn't in love with the combat of Witcher 3, I mean, that was the game where the open world meant something. Like, every region felt really different. All the side content was very meaningful. It wasn't like all these games where here's an open world and 4,000 repetitive fetch quests and kill a million generic enemies. It just never felt like that. And that was a great thing about it. That's why so many games copied and emulated Witcher 3 after its success, right? So even though I wasn't massively in love with the game like other people were, I really appreciated it when I beat it. And remember, I went on and played both DLCs and loved them. So yes, I played both DLCs and I liked both of them quite a lot. No Super Real Vibes is going to eat Chick-fil-A for lunch while watching. What do you eat at Chick-fil-A? My wife and I keep thinking we're going to go. We never go. We've only been there twice ever. And we loved it both times we went. I think both times we got a spicy chicken sandwich, deluxe or something with the waffle fries. But then we never went back. Well, I play the new Indiana Jones game when it comes out. Admittedly, it looks intriguing to me. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't think an indie game would work. But it looks like an interesting take that I might enjoy. So I'm interested in it. You got to Moog's Palace. Eternal Labomb said he's exploring. He was playing Elden Ring yesterday, exploring parts he didn't do previously, and he got to Moog's Palace. Yeah, that's a really tough part of the game. The underground, getting to the Blood Palace, and the enemies there, and that fight, by far, one of the hardest parts. Is that and the Halley Tree are the two toughest parts of the game, by far. It's a shame I didn't go back to Cyberpunk. No, it's not. Again, I keep explaining this to people, and it's like the problem is with Cyberpunk, when it came out, it got clowned on and memed on for being a broken mess, okay? I never disliked the game for it being a broken mess. Surely it was funny to laugh at how broken it was, but that wasn't my problem. My problem was I didn't like the universe, I didn't like the gameplay elements, and the story was only good about a third of the time. So if you're only having fun 20 to 30% of the time you're playing a game, you're not going to like it no matter how much they tweak it and fix it. It's still going to suck to you, right? It's just not my cup of tea. The universe I found absolutely obnoxious, not funny, not interesting, just obnoxiously stupid. Again, half the characters I didn't like. The two characters I really liked, I enjoyed their side quest lines and stuff. But outside of that, the main plot was just okay. It wasn't great. The gameplay elements are a joke. It's a combination of Deus Ex and Borderlands. So it's two games they taped together, and they acted like they created a new engine or something. No, you didn't. You literally copied two other games and taped the elements together and acted like it was good. It wasn't. It was boring to me. I was very bored playing that game. And it doesn't matter how much they improve, what DLC they add, it's still going to be the same game. Unless you're telling me, oh, they changed the game. It's completely different. It's not the same game anymore. All the elements are different. Then maybe, oh, really? So it's not set in the same universe that I find obnoxious. They actually wrote characters to be more interesting and better. The plot's better, and they refined all the gameplay to change it and make it unique. If they did that, then I'll go back and play it again. But from what I've heard, all they did is they went back and they fixed the universe, so now it actually works and it's vibrant like it was supposed to be. But it's the same obnoxious universe, the same crappy characters, the same fucking plot. So why do I care? Right? I don't give a shit. Do I know about the origins of the Dark Urge character in Baldur's Gate 3? Yeah, I was spoiled on that. I was spoiled on that. Of course I was. I was spoiled on everything during that playthrough. Everyone spoiled every aspect of the game for me. I mean, we were literally in the ending, and someone spoiled the ending 2 minutes before the ending was about to happen on screen. Good afternoon, Cracker Jacks. Good to have you. How are you? You don't know why people kept doing that? Because people can't fucking resist spoiling. I don't know what it is. It's like people have this feeling that when they have knowledge that you don't have, that it's like a superiority thing or something. It's like, now I must tell you everything. I just must. It's a feeling of like, I must tell you this everything I know that you don't know. But it's about to happen now. Just wait like a minute. We'll all see it together. No, I will tell you first. What? No. Just keep your lips zipped. You're going to try the Chick-fil-A Cool Wrap with a side of fries and a milkshake. What is the Cool Wrap? I didn't even know they had wraps. I knew they had variations on chicken sandwiches. How tough is Moog compared to the others? I would argue that the blood boss, the true version of Moog, is the second hardest boss in the game. Hardest boss being Melania. Or Melania? I don't know what the fuck her name is, but he's the second hardest boss by far. Very unique boss fight. You will get your ass whooped. I did, many times. I couldn't beat him. I had to come back. I had to respec and come back with a different take, and then I beat him. I'm actually excited to see how I do against him the second time with my magic build. Because remember, my new magic build, I have this rune I put on the ground, and then I charge my giant beam, and if I hit with the beam, it could stun lock enemies. Like, that's how I beat the Lich Dragon. I just stun locked it. He couldn't even move. It was like, and I just cast it again, and he was melted. So I'm wondering if you can do that with other bosses, and this could be a case where that's very interesting if that works. I don't know. We'll have to see. Okay, any last minute stuff, guys? Or shall we adjourn the podcast and then take a quick break and then get into Alone in the Dark? I'm excited to see what the game's about. I actually don't know. I have no clue. So, oh yes, this is a survival horror game, but yes, it is. Absolutely. 100% survival horror game. Sliced grilled chicken breast, nestled in a fresh mix of green leaf lettuce with a blend of shredded Monterey Jack and cheddar cheeses, lightly rolled in a flax seed flour flatbread. Could they have been any more? Flax seed flour flatbread. Oui. Okay, everyone, thank you for being here for the Level 1 podcast. Thanks to those who have returned to my streams for variety. We're here. It was an endeavor to get here, but we're here. It's time for new content, okay? And I'm happy that you guys are here. Thank you for being patient the last several months. RPG Overload is officially done. Time for new, fresh stuff. And I'm excited for it, and I hope you are too. It's time to get started. I'm excited tomorrow to tell you about what I thought about these games that I'm finally jumping into today. So I hope you'll come back for the podcast tomorrow morning. Peace out, everyone. Have a good day.